Now today I have an old school remote control. This is an AWA, I think this was a QM chassis or Q chassis these went with, and it's an ultrasonic remote. So no infrared LED in this one. I do have a Sanyo one here with the TV that is also ultrasonic, which I assume is working. This one's meant to be a goer. At least it's got a light to indicate. Buttons are a little bit dicky. That one doesn't work at all. Can't turn the TV on and off with that. These probably certainly feels like old mechanical type, little spring contact type buttons or something. But the other thing is, just because the light goes doesn't mean the remote's working. So just because the light's working doesn't mean it's actually putting out an output. We never did get around to building a test of one of these, I don't think. Easy enough to pull an infrared receiver out of something and just hook it up to an LED and 5 volts and prove that you're actually receiving a signal, but these you really need an ultrasonic transducer. It wouldn't be hard to do something, but there wasn't really much call for them by the time we got to the 90s and stuff, so I don't know if I ever repaired one of these things, but it's possible I did. Bound to have had to repair one for someone at some stage. What on earth is that? It's got an adjustable thing in it. Is that a big like lump of ferrite or something? Looks like the transducer at the front. Got some tuning caps. So I think these run at around 40 kilohertz. So I don't think any normal microphone is going to pick them up, even though obviously we can't hear it, but you could hook it up, a normal mic up to an oscilloscope and see if it picks up something, I guess. The other option is basically just to hook an oscilloscope up to the output device, because if it's feeding that, then chances are it's working. Don't think these little transducer things ever fail, but it does have a little bit of dusty stuff in the front there. What on earth? That's a neon. Can't be a neon. I was expecting an LED there, but it looks like a mini little neon light. Do they make neons that run at 3 volts? Unless, I wonder if this is running, well, it's got an oscillator. Maybe this oscillator runs, I can't remember, it's been so long since I've even looked at something with a ultrasonic transducer in it. I can't remember what sort of voltage they run on, but sure enough these switches are, what a simple old design, eh? They just got a little button with a spring on it that's held by this metal piece, and it comes through a hole in the back of the board. That's why they wobble around and don't feel very good, and it just presses these two contacts down, and not very straight at that, onto a couple of pads on the board. So they're going to probably need a good contact clean. Yeah, the power one's actually, God, look at it. Oh, that's actually broken. The little pin part on it's busted. Yeah, it's the only one not sticking through the hole, so that probably isn't helping when you press it. That's pretty annoying. I reckon we could probably even melt something into that to fix it. Not that I even have a TV to run this with, but I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at one. Again, there were not many TVs, these AWAs. I'm surprised these were, I think, came out early 80s, around 81 or something. The next model, I think, is infrared. Was a Q, QM, and then ML chassis. ML was definitely infrared. Not sure about the QM, whether that upgraded. There were the early Chrysler TVs from the 70s. I think some of the Gratz and maybe Blaupunks and different stuff like that. And what else used them? Well, there's a Sanyo I've got here. Did National, I can't remember if National Panasonic, a lot of their TVs in Australia didn't have remotes at all. I'm trying to remember if they made an ultrasonic one. I don't think I can think of a single ultrasonic one for them, but there weren't many brands that used them from memory. Don't think any of the HMVs or Healings, those sort of things used them. These were made by Mitsubishi. I assume it says here made in Japan on the back. So Mitsubishi used them. Sanyo, Chrysler, which was basically Philips. Philips used the infrared remote on pretty early on, I think. Wasn't the K11 or something, or am I imagining that? Pretty sure some of their early stuff did use it though. But we'll have a look. Actually, what I can see here is, I think these have actually worn they've worn through the tinning on the copper. So this has had a good hammering over the years, or you can tell from all the scratches and stuff on the front would have been people's fingers on it. Someone's been furiously changing the 3 or 4 channels they had probably every time an ad break came on. And yeah, this is actually worn. I wonder if I should unsolder this thing. What's the other end? Oh, it's just twisted. So metal comes through with twists, and it's twisted this end too, but also soldered. This almost wants disassembly, I think, and a good service. But of course, then everything's going to fall to bits. What are the buttons on this? Channel up, down, volume up, down, mute. That's one we're not going to use very often. So I could swap the mute button for the power one, just so the more useful one operates better and doesn't have the broken button in it. Someone scribbled something on there, probably a quality control mark or something on a little green sticker. See if this one's soldering Ari. I probably should use the desoldering tool, but a lot of these things you can just sort of yank them. Whoa, and that's the sort of mess I expected, which is fine because that was going to have to happen. Getting them back together might be fun. Oh, what are these little washers? They must have been on the switches as well, on the little shafts. I guess that holds the other end of the spring. And there's all sorts of bits of basically tinning. They've actually worn probably through to the, yeah, they have worn through, I think, to the actual circuit board. Well, that's the mute button, I assume. It hasn't been used. Oh, that's the on-off one, is it? Is that the right way around? Yeah, it is. I know they've used the mute plenty. They've hammered that mute into oblivion. So again, I guess all those ad breaks, if you've got a mute button to shut them up, that's going to get used, but a lot of people change channel. But wow, that really is almost on the verge of being worn out, even though this one doesn't look too bad on the outside. I've seen them look worse than that. Almost need to etch a new circuit board for it, because this has gone right through not just the tinning but the actual copper in places. So I guess the on-off button just got used once a night or something, or twice, I guess, on and then off again. Or maybe they actually hit the button on the TV itself as they walk past or something. But man, this has had a good old use. So I guess, oh yeah, this is the common, one common track here, and you can see where the buttons have been pressing on that as well. That's this little back pin, and they are tarnished very badly too by the look of it, which is surprising given that they've worn holes through things, but probably not in a long time. Do I have a bit of this micro scrub stuff's good for cleaning up contacts. Just, yeah, that's a lot better. At least they're not black anymore. You could use a metal polish or something like Brasso, probably work as well. Yeah, just getting that black stuff off there has got to help. And maybe they want retentioning a bit. If you bend these ever so slightly just to get a bit more tension on them. No. And that one's actually in pretty mint condition. That might have been the one, the power one that hasn't been used much. But yeah, they polish up pretty easy. Some of them aren't too bad. Some are, the first one I picked up was the worst one, I think. Oh, even worse, this has not only lost the pin, but it's lost the back part of its contact. Was that in there anyway? So that's why that doesn't operate. It's well and truly cactus. Not much point cleaning it. What am I cleaning it for? So this remote's definitely partly faulty and unrepairable in a way. So we've got these. I assume that little piece went on there, would have had to, I think. And there's not much I can do with the circuit board tracks, really. I guess we could maybe... So we're going to have to try and sit them... Or do we sit them all... Either way, it's going to be a bit of a pain. Do we sit them all in here? That's probably the only way to really attach them. Except I'm going to have to sit this up on something so it doesn't push them back out. what can I really do? I guess just clean them up the best I can and hope. Well, they all worked. I mean, not that you could see they weren't all operating 100%, but maybe that was just the tarnish. But I don't think they're going to be the most perfect of things. I mean, it's good to see this got plenty of use, but kind of a shame as well that it's pretty much worn out. And the other thing I wouldn't mind testing, we'll put the buttons back in first, is the electronics. It's almost like, is it some sort of resonance circuit? I guess they must be, that's some sort of oscillator and you're switching different capacitances in by the look of it. And these little tuners, or trimmers, so probably just, you've got a couple of different, I don't know if they're even different values, but I guess if the trimmer's tweaked on them, 171 Soshin, I don't know how you say that, 221 680 470, so I guess that's picofarads, 101 131, so they're all definitely different values. There's a few other ones in here, might be just part of the general oscillator. A couple of diodes, only one, two resistors, three resistors, cap, and I assume that's some sort of inductor. Where's it actually connected? That's, must be those two pins, those two pins. So it's maybe a 4-pin device with a transistor. And yeah, the really interesting thing is this neon. Does that come off one of the, that's a common line or something? That's the negative. The battery goes to these, so the negative of the battery is what's connected to each thing when we press the switch. Well, it was until it just fell off. That's what you get for fiddling with these things too long. Positive comes up here. I assume that's due to the transistor, which is a 2S B172, so PMP. So is that the base? That's the collector, that's the emitter maybe. Oh, that goes to, yeah, into that inductor. This looks like a ground, but it doesn't seem to be a ground. It goes through a diode and another diode. What on earth are they doing here? And so the ground, well, that is the ground, yeah, so that's the ground because it goes through the switches. And our neon, I wonder if that's just running off a separate coil inside this thing. Actually, through a 470k resistor to ground. Yeah, I tell you what, that oscillator thing, but that's actually coming. It's another resistor. Where's this actual transducer hooked to? One side to the ground, one side to here, which goes to a capacitor and a resistor. Yeah, capacitor back to where this neon is. And that's also this line that comes around here. Oh, connects to all the different capacitors. And then to ground through the switch. Oh, so the switch actually switches directly to the thing next to it. No, hang on. What the? Oh, it's got two sets of contacts. One switches the capacitor to this line, and then the other part switches this line to ground by the look of it. Or through there, and through there. So they both go to ground. Why would you have them separate? Well, I guess you don't want the capacitor connected to ground or the main circuit connect. So it switches the power to the whole circuit as well as switching the capacitor into circuit. It's got a 470k resistor feeding one side of the neon to ground. That must be putting one hell of a voltage out. Can't run on. That's like the sort of value resistor. Actually, do you even have one that high on 240 volts? That's a bit of a worry. It doesn't say anything about dangerous voltages in this thing, but I might have to be a little bit careful. It'd be very super low current, I would guess. Yeah, so pressing this button would only connect the cap to something that's not connected to ground. Okay. Ah, what am I doing? Spring on. Then our little insulating washer thing. And I've got to work out which goes which way. The solder ones are up that end, so that's the opposite end of the mute, I think. So the mute is this green corner. So if we put the broken one there, while I'm in here, oh, now we've got all the spring and stuff loose, we won't be able to put it back on that one. So yeah, that means we lose that, but still, you're not going to fix this unless you get a whole other remote to pinch the bits out of anyway. And then you can pinch your spring and stuff out of that one, I guess. But if I put it back together, I might see if we can get the oscilloscope on it and see what sort of signal we get. And yeah, the only real way to prove 100% everything's working is to use another transducer. They had a transmit type and a receive type from memory. Oh, one of these has dropped off already. And yeah, something that can pick up 40 kilohertz or so. And just make sure it is actually transmitting across the room, because it could be a faulty transducer, I guess. Now we're going to have to put this back. Might even have to unsolder this other wire, I think. Now I think of it. That's over near that yellow capacitor. Oh, I probably should have took the solder off this too, now that I think about it. Because I don't know if these will go back into the holes, but we'll soon find out, I guess. Oh, this is going to be a fiddly. I can at least get them roughly in place. So I guess the other problem is we've got to get each little switch to go in its hole. But yeah, if you... what fell out? That's just a lump of solder, that's alright. Don't know where it came from, but probably off the chassis bit I'm poking back in, the little frame. Well, that's a bit of a fiddly job, but not too bad. If I do need to retension, I can do it. While they're in here, oh, that's one problem, I guess. Now that the spring is gone, that's not going to sit up. Damn. Now that's annoying. But could I have got the spring to stay in there? Possibly. If I just pull that back a bit. Let's see if I can squeeze it and shove it back in there. I didn't think about that. It was on there, but it decided to fall off. Oh, come on, out you come. Ah, son of a... Slipped out of the pliers. I think I need to press on it as I really draw the pliers. That'll do it. There's always a knack to everything. One thing you get good at doing these sort of things is fiddling weird little things into getting them apart and getting them back together again. All sorts of tricks you need to do to get these things to work. Oh, the actual circuit board track's come off a bit there, so that's no good. Just have to solder it to the side a bit. Not that it probably needs it, but best to try and get its mechanical integrity back. Even though this thing's going to need pulling apart one day. In theory, if I ever find a TV to go with it, to repair that switch maybe, but don't think there's too many QMs left around, or Q chassis. Probably a few though, a pretty reliable TV. One of the first sort of flat boarded ones. Everything on one chassis rather than multiple separate boards wired together and stuff. So that's soldered onto there. I need to re-examine that a bit, I think. Come on. So, should I use the 3-volt power supply, or can I get these to stay in place? These might actually stay in there. I've got pretty good old springs in these things. See if we've actually got any better action out of this thing. I don't know if I should put my hands on those or not. Well, it didn't electrocute me. It's not working the best, neither is that. The batteries come loose. They are now. Well, this battery springs isn't in the best position. A bit bent. Well, I got a bit of light action when I first tried, now nothing. What the... Or is it because I've got my fingers all over it? That wouldn't worry out, would it? Oh, that one's going. Oh, maybe it is. That one doesn't work. Oh, that's got the mute. It's broken, we know that. Put my fingers on there, it seems to stop it. That one doesn't work, they're down. Got power now, volume, channel up. No channel down for some reason. So that's probably completely worn out. Hang on, what's going on here? Is that pressing? Pretty sure that's one that needs retensioning, because I don't think the back's coming down far enough. Where are you? I can see that one, but I can't see that one. Oh, there it is. That might work now. Oh, it does. I can see the little neon going. Well, that fixed that one, so that one's busted. The rest all work. A little bit iffy, but yeah, look at that. He'd probably get multiple channel changes out of one press at that rate. That one's good. Yeah, that's a bit... wonder if that one needs a retension as well. Seems to be... it's not too bad now. Then again, as soon as you say that, it plays up. Funny thing is, I think I can actually hear that. Yeah, I can actually hear the ultrasonic, possibly when those contacts are doing a bad thing, you can hear the ultrasonic make a sort of squishy sound. So I think that's working. Sounds a bit like squishing something, so maybe that fast pulsing on and off of a faulty button is a good way to test them. But I hope there's not too much voltage here for the oscilloscope to be happy with. We'll put it on the 10 times setting just to be safe. And that was ground. And was it that wire? Where's the red wire from that? The transducer's over that way. Of course this is going to fall off. Usual sort of story with this time. I can clamp it onto there. and there. See if we can make a contact. Ooh, we got something on the screw. Oh yeah, that switch is dicky as. Oh yeah, oh, nice big waveform. That is a pretty high voltage. And no idea what the frequency is, but it's probably flying along there a bit. I'm getting a nice sine wave coming up, so that's a good sign if this is producing a sine wave into the transducer. That one's pretty diggy. Yeah, they definitely can actually see the frequency went to some freaky thing then. Was it because I pressed 2 at once? Oh yeah, when you press 2 at once you can see the frequency. Oh, you can change the frequency again, yeah, but you can see the frequency of the sine wave move a bit. Shift on the oscilloscope. I'll have to get an image of that in a minute. Yeah, that one's pretty cactus, I think. I thought I got that one working again. I wonder if it's bent the... I'm pressing too hard on it. That's the temptation of these buttons, because they're not very mechanically... I can certainly see the sine wave moving to some degree. A bit hard to... We'll have to spread it out a bit more. That's dicky. These are pretty worn out. Can see it shift ever so slightly. That one ain't going to work. So I think we can assume that's some sort of shift in the frequency. Oh yeah, that you can actually kind of see the waveform change length, or at least the gap between the peaks. Okay, let's hook it up, and there's one of them. Even that's like varying a bit depending on the button. Very hard to get a reliable signal out of it, unfortunately, but you can see that waveform sort of shifting where the peaks are, and the length between them ever so slightly. When I can get it to come on the actual screen. That's one button, that's the other button. You can see the waveform's definitely bunching up on one. That's one of the other buttons. I can't reliably get it to work though. There's just not enough buttons that reliably work, but they're shifting a bit. Let's try between here. You can see them stretch out, change position a bit. So there's basically some sort of tuned circuit at the other end, and depending what frequency it tells, I guess, the microprocessor or whatever it uses. Not sure if I had a micro on these TVs or just some sort of 4000 series chips or something. To look it up, but depending on what the frequency is, that will trigger whatever function. Something will switch in there to up the volume, down the volume, turn the volume off, or change the channel, or turn the power relay on and off. Yeah, it's an interesting bit of old technology. I didn't realise they had a neon in them, or if I did see it once before, I'd forgotten about it. I think these were AWA ones. Were the only ones to actually have a light inside them, but I could be wrong. Don't think it was normal on the Ultrasonics to actually have any indication, which is a good feature to put on there so people have an idea if there's something up with their batteries or whatever, or the remote's been dropped one too many times. So kind of a good feature in a way for diagnostics by the customer. I reckon they probably chew through the batteries relatively quick, whereas infrared ones can go forever, just about the life of the appliance, without needing new batteries, unless the batteries just rot away from age. These things probably use a bit of power. I mean, if it's powering a neon, well, I don't think neons use an awful lot, but it must be running a decent bit of oscillator there to do that. And certainly a bit of a larger, heavier, clunkier one, but not that bad really. It's actually quite good in the hand in some ways. It's a nice big bulky one. So quite nicely made, this one. I think the Chrysler ones were a great big thing. You couldn't really fit in your hand. And the little Sanyo one I got, I think, is even smaller than this one. It's similar in size. Would have been from the similar sort of era, early 80s. So maybe it was meant to be like this, sort of two-handed operation. Does kind of work a bit better. That button's still pretty dicky. You just got to press it the right way, I think. And yeah, kind of interesting that you're bouncing sound around. I don't know how good these were for range, or whether you could use them around corners and stuff. I guess once I dig that Sanyo out from under the stuff that's buried under at the moment, I'll get that and give it a go and see whether it's any different. But I think these are pretty much line of sight because it is a high frequency, so normally tweeters and stuff, you want them pointing in the direction of your ears or you won't hear a lot from them, whereas bass and low frequency is the one that is able to go around corners and through walls and whatever, mainly because it's got more energy. But it's not picky at all. You can place a subwoofer anywhere in the room. Tweeters on the other hand, and this is a lot higher, well, I guess double the highest output of a audio range. Yeah, now that you look at it, you kind of realise that is a little baby neon. So I wonder if they're a lower strike voltage, but still, it's got a 470k resistor. They're dropping a hell of a lot of something to it. But anyway, thanks for watching.